This video is proudly sponsored by DigimonCard.io for all your Digimon card, deck building, deck list, card pricing, and discussion needs.
Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and with today being the release of EX3 in North America, we are doing our EX3 predictive tier list with special emphasis on predictive because there's such a whiplash of turnaround between BT10 and EX3. We pretty much had like 3 tournaments on the BT10 meta, and then we just have all of the ban list and just everything else, so it's a little up in the air. I've done as much testing as I can and looked at like obviously the Japanese meta, but their meta and our meta are different, especially with some key cards that they have and we don't have, and with the ban list as well as just everything going on. So this is just my predictions. If you think I'm dog wrong on some of these, let me know. I'd be happy to hear in the comments, but I'm going to do my best here. So above me is the previous tier list I had for the BT10 meta. I didn't have an updated tier list for this one like I normally do because it just bled into the EX3 meta, so that was just kind of the idea there. But I do think I think this was kind of a solid one. It was okay for what it was. No, but obviously it means nothing with just all the changes going into EX3. So we're going to start, break this tier list into 2, and we'll have like the little time cards for it. So we'll start with the pretty much all the BT10 list and everything in BT10 and before without any good change it, like no new big cards in EX3, but just with shifts in meta. And this will probably be like more of the updated BT10 tier list with the ban list, and then we'll go into just new archetypes that are coming out with EX3 on top of just older archetypes that got a big boon with it. So we're going to start off with our first one, the Shoutmon Boy. I'm going to put in trash. Honestly, if I was being honest, it'd probably be unplayable. Putting in trash for 2 reasons. One, the fact that I don't like the way that they fixed this archetype by just saying, wait until BT11 for the X7 archetype. That's pretty much what they said with this. They said, we don't like how the cross 4 archetype works. We don't like everything. We're just going to get rid of it. They effectively banned this card, and they banned the deck for what it was, which is fine. I know a lot of people didn't like it, and it probably opened up the archetypes and the metas and stuff, but I think they could have done it in a way that makes the deck playable without overpowering, and they just decided to delete it from the game almost. Again, like limiting it to 1, like it's like such a slap on the wrist because it's like, oh, you could still play it, but you definitely shouldn't. You definitely shouldn't play the list as it was with just 4 cross 5. So I don't know. We're putting in trash. I don't think anyone should be playing this, which is a real shame because it got like 2 weeks of play in like 2 tournaments. But there we go. Anyways, going into the other Digicross, boom. I still think Blue Flare is really good. I'm super surprised it hasn't done anything in the BT10 meta. I know people played it, but it hasn't gone on top yet. And I know it's a big long shot there, but yeah, I still think it's highly competitive. I think a lot of people are going to be switching to it. And I think the only reason people might not be playing it is because of they think that, Where Guru X is better, and they're probably right. They're probably right. I still think Where Guru X is the best deck in the game. It is so dang strong at what it does. I think it's incredibly good at swarming the board. It does a lot of damage, and without having to use a lot of memory or a lot of specific cards, there's a lot of flexibility in it, and it's just super duper strong there. So I think both of these are at the top. We'll see if people are switching to Blue Flare at all. I think I expect at least 1 top 16 finish off of that. We'll see if that's true or not, but that is my opinion there. If you want, I could see Blue Flare moving down competitive. We might change our minds with it by the end of this video, but there we go. Next up, we have Security Control, and I think Security Control is almost always going to be at least competitive. If you like the archetype and you like what the deck does, you can probably commit to Security Control and just play that only for the rest of your Digimon career and probably do pretty okay. So nothing too different with this. It's solid, and I like what it does, so we're putting it right there. Next up, we have our Skull Nightmon, and I'm going to move it up to competitive. I think I had it highly playable previously, and I've really fallen in love with this deck. I think it's super solid. It did get a EU top, which is really cool, and I think a lot of people, including myself, originally underestimated this deck because of like the original line was really weak and didn't do anything, but it's super great, especially with the new stuff now. So I think that is warranted there. So we're going to put in competitive. I think it's cool. And I'm probably going to be playing it for the EX3 meta still. I think it's a solid deck. So There we go there. Next up, Minervamon. I'm going to put it in highly playable. I had high expectations for this one, and it really didn't do anything. Like, and that could just be like Shoutmon keeping it down and all the aggressive stuff, but like, it's really cool when you set it up, but I don't know if you're gonna have time to really set up what you're trying to do with this. So I don't know. I'm gonna put in a highly playable. If that gives it the if that gives you a kick in the butt to do better with the deck, then I'll go for it. But it's a real shame because I really like what it does. I think it's really really cool, and I wish it was doing a little bit better as well. Next up, we have Armor Rush. We're putting this in competitive. I'm pretty sure I put in highly playable. I don't have the actual image above me. I put that up there in editing. So if you're wondering why I'm questioning what's literally above my head right now, it's because I'm not seeing it at this moment. But I think I put in highly playable. I'm putting in competitive. I think there's some really cool stuff that can happen. Obviously, we saw Martin Lee's finish first place in Play TCG's event, and again in their in-person event too with another Armor deck. So I think Armor is just kind of here to stay. It does some really neat stuff, and there's some really cool lines that you can do with it. I don't think it negatively interacts too poorly with anything that just exists in the game right now, or at least in the EX3 meta. So it's cool. I like it. I've always loved Armor. It's what got me my Nats invite. So it's always gonna have a special place in my heart, and we're gonna put back up there in competitive where it belongs and go right there. Next is Grandis, and Grandis has just been doing super good right now. Grandis is on a real hot streak, which is really weird because it did almost it got like the occasional top in BT9, but it's just been topping like crazy. So I think I'm putting it up in highly competitive. I think it's solid. It did get like a couple of tiny tweaks in what it's doing, and I think some other meta decks that are around can't really adjust for what it's doing. So I think it's a solid list in general. If you want to bump it down to competitive for yourself, go for it. But I think it's in that highly competitive tier in my own mind there. So that is where I am placing it. And then Black War, Greymon, Gaiamon, I really want to put in competitive. I really do. But it didn't get any tops, and it's supposed to be like the deck that counters Cross 4, and it didn't do that, right? It didn't get tops. It didn't get anything in the last couple weeks. I'm putting it down in highly playable, which is a real shame because I really do like this archetype and what it does. I just don't think it's putting the numbers that it should be. And I know I put Blue Flare up here. I know you guys can give me flack for putting Blue Flare, even though it's doing nothing. But the only other thing that I say for Blue Flare side is that no one, based on the numbers I've seen from the events, no one is actually playing this deck. And I don't know if it's because they think Metal Guru is better, which it probably is, or if they just think that Cross 4 was better, which it probably was. But I think a lot more people will be trying this one. So anyways, that's where I think there. Alpha, I don't know. It's probably fine. Alpha's probably still fine. It's probably I'll put in playable. We'll see if I change my mind. I'm only just to like even it out. I think it's still strong. Obviously, there's a lot of good tools for. We'll put in highly playable. You can even bump it up to competitive. My only concern with it is I don't think people are going to be playing this anymore because I think it's just not exactly the same powerhouse or protection that it used to have. Even though like taking another turn essentially is pretty good for what you're doing, and I think that the big boss boy is still very strong, but it's just so much easier to remove. And you give your opponent more time to do something against it too, as well. That it's just fine for what it is, and I think it's just I'm talking myself out. We're putting in playable. That's where we're putting it. If you guys want to make fun of me for putting it there, you think it's better than that, let me know. But I think it's playable. It does make a big boy, but that's about it. And you get some swings, but then you also just get removed. And it's harder to go up your chain because you don't have as many Juro Greymons anymore because you have like the Dex one, but like you have to find like another line, which kind of stinks with it. So I don't know. That's my thought. I can be wrong on this one. This is my rogue pick, I guess, for right now. But that is where he is. Mastamon, I don't know. We'll put it in middle. I like Mastamon. I do. I really do. It sometimes does stuff. Not nearly as enough as it should, but we're put in highly playable. We'll see if that sticks or not. Justmon, I think I had pretty high up. I'm going to put that in highly playable too. I think it got hit in the crossfire with like the rookies that prevented you from playing cards from effect. And guess what? Those are sticking around for quite a bit. So not being able to play your system mons for free in a lot of matchups really kind of stinks. So I think it's Jessamon has been like the best it's ever been, which is unfortunately not saying a lot. In its original run, it didn't like it was a scary deck, but it didn't really perform a lot. And then it got banned with the Savior Huckmon a little early too, and all of that combined, it just really stinks because I like Jessamon as a character and like everything else with it, and I think the deck is fine, but it's just still missing something, which is which a starter deck and like 2 sets later you think it'd have something going for it, and it nearly almost does, but it's still just, I'd say, barely missing the mark. So we do have Beelstar. I'm putting in highly playable. It did just like win an event in Texas, obviously, so it's a playable deck in the very, very least. I don't know how it's going to be doing in the EX3 meta, honestly. It's just kind of like the deck that just sticks around and occasionally gets a top because one person is just grinding only on Beelstar and they get that W with it. So I think it's still fine. I like the deck, and I've enjoyed playing it in the past as well. And maybe we'll do something again in this meta. It's just a safe, highly playable pick there. So that is rounding out the BT10 tier list, at least decks that at least exist or anything else. If you did not see the deck that you play here, it is probably highly playable or less based on what we're wanting to say for that. So but yeah, I think these 3 are still like the strongest from the BT10 or less meta in general. We'll see if we see more Blue Flare. I expect to see a lot more of that. Definitely these 2 are, I think, the strongest. We'll put Blue Flare on the far right. How about that? Does that make people happy? I know I'm like the only person doubting myself because I haven't seen the comments yet about my placement for Blue Flare, but I really do believe in this deck. I think it's a strong E. So anyways, going into the EX3, so these are decks that are either new with EX3 in general or decks that have gotten support with the release of new EX3 cards. So starting off, we do have the this could be a lot of things. This could be a lot of different archetypes. This could be essentially the whole Graumon got a new line essentially, and the War Graumon is honestly pretty fire. So if you want to do like the mill, if you want to go like Chaos Gallant X or something, I don't really know how this deck is going to go. I'm going to be honest. This is just a Hail Mary of, I think it's probably going to do something. I'm going to put it here in competitive. It might be too high. I don't think it might be. It's probably too. I don't think it's too low. I don't think it's highly competitive, but there are some cool stuff you can do with it. The new lines do help you out a lot too. Just honestly having more cards with just the name Graumon in it is just what helps this deck sometimes, which is nice. And maybe you can do some stuff with it. So and an in archetype way to play your Graumon is like your Takato off your War Graumon is pretty good too. So I don't know. We'll see if this deck does anything. I think like Mill could be something for like a deck against your opponent if you want to be crazy with it, but just the fact like it opens up enough doors, I'm putting in competitive for that. We'll see if that's too high. It's probably too high if anything, but we'll end up seeing. Dorbic I think is pretty neat. I think it's pretty neat. I think it's really inconsistent at times, and but there's a lot of cool stuff, and the hardest thing for me is recognizing what is a dragon or not with trait wise. I think that's like it, and I think obviously with the Digimon creators too, they had some issues with that, but it does some cool stuff. There's some cool like just big on plays you get to do with it. There's like a dozen different ways to build this deck too for you if you want to. So it's very flexible for that, and I think this incorporates honestly a lot of like different sub genres for it. By and large, I think it's playable. I think you should test it out. If there's a line that you like and you think it's good, go for it. I think there's something for you there. I'm not going to put it up in competitive because I haven't seen everything for it yet. This is a real wild ball for me, so I don't really know where I'm putting it. So I'm just going to put in that safe middle spot and just kind of see how it ends up. All right, the Dragon Lords. I really want to like this deck. I really do. I truly do. I don't. I simply don't. I think it's kind of clunky for what it does. I don't think it's very consistent. I think you have just a bunch of times where it's just rough, or you have to give your opponent like a bunch of memory, which they can come back from, and it's very bricky because of that too. So it's a real shame because I really did want, I tried this one a lot. I really did want to like it, but I think there's just some matchups too where it just you auto lose because they set up faster than you and you can't really do anything for it. So we're putting in playable. If I'm wrong, I'd be super happy about this because I do want to play this archetype. And if my builds are bad, that's fine by me. But so far, it's not looking super good for this guy. So let me know if you have a list that's been working for you. I'd be super duper interested for it. All right, Bloom Lord, Hydra. I'm putting in competitive. We're putting it like top end competitive. I still think Grandis is like the better deck list for green by and large, but I do appreciate what the Hydra adds to it, and just the new green stuff and like the vegetation stuff for it in general and plant stuff. So I think this is really cool. It almost feels like a purple deck, not gonna lie. There's just so many like interactions with it, and like you can build your board and like suspend and unsuspend stuff. It's very cool from that regard. So I think it's competitive. I think it's going to be pretty tough to say that it's highly competitive in my mind, but I think people will definitely be playing it. And it's definitely an upgrade from Bloom Lord from last set, but I don't think Bloom Lord was in any way competitive. I think it was Bloom Lord should have been like playable before this. So with the new line, I think it being competitive, I think makes sense to me. And hopefully it does well. So that's what I have there. Next is the new Imperial Dramon red purple stuff. I'm putting in playable. I also wanted to like this archetype in this deck and everything with it, but man, it is so tough. It is so tough to set up your trash and see the pieces that you need and everything that goes with this deck without just dying because your opponent's like not waiting for you to set up. You know what I mean? So I am a big fan of Imperial Dramon, the free line, and Vmon, and everything that goes with it. Obviously, I like the armor stuff, but man, this one is just tough. It's a toughie to get consistently. When you make the line, you feel like a god. Like, don't get me wrong, you feel really good for doing the one thing that this deck does, but it's a lot of steps to get to that one thing. So I'm putting in playable. Again, I hope this does well, and I hope to be wrong on this one, but we're not quite there yet. So next we have Examon, and I'm going to say this is the best archetype from EX3 that we get from it. I can be wrong here, but it's kind of like a better version of Black War Greymon in my mind. You just have to build your big line, and then you have protection. You have ways to get rid of your opponent's Digimon, and like it's just gonna be like such a almost like lockdown against a lot of special certain decks for it. So if I was to be pessimistic, I'd probably put in competitive. I think it probably belongs here, but I want to put in highly competitive. I think it's in just to more signify that this is like the best EX3 specific list that we get from this. Unless you think Hydra's better. If you think Hydra's better than Examon, let me know in the comments below. But I think it's solid here. I think people are definitely going to be playing it in the very, very least, and they're going to be trying it out. And I think they're going to get some tops strictly because of that too. So. Lastly, we've got two more. The Machine Dramon stuff, probably still playable. I like it's cool. I think the Machine Dramon stuff is really, really cool, but I don't think it's cool enough to be played yet, and I don't think it's quite there. It's just such a hard ask to do in a meta that we have both Metal Guru X and Grandis pretty much like knocking on your life door on like turn 3, right? So. But if you're able to establish like a really tall blocker with Machine Dramon and this, you're able to do something with it, but it's not quite there yet for me. So we're just going to have it right there. And then lastly, Deep Brigade. I think Deep Brigade is fine. And we're going to put it right there. Deep Brigade's probably better than Skull Nightmon. I said it, but it's pretty strong for what it is. It's just got more support. It was really competitive in the previous format, and then it has a bunch of new toys to play with, and people will be playing with it. So you got to check out for that and just kind of see what the new things the deck kind of has. So anyways, this is my completed BT10 EX3 tier list starting today, and which will be in this meta for the next couple weeks. So that's going to be it. Again, this is a pretty prediction on me. We're definitely going to do like an updated tier list midway through the meta, since we will have more time for it and adjust it for what we've been seeing and just how the decks are doing. But I don't know. I'm optimistic. I think we're going to see a bunch of new decks on the board, which is really cool, and I'm excited to see how they do. So that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll catch you all next time.